following presentation is a Delmarva Studios production.
Welcome back, Truth Seekers from around the world. It's time for another edition of the Flat Earth Files. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a great guest standing by who will join us momentarily. Before we get started with that, just a reminder, if you'd like to send us an email, any questions, comments, concerns, or you'd like to join us such Kevin is tonight, please do. It's theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. Again, it's theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. I am recording Friday night, shortly after 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Looking at my inbox, I'm down about 20, so I will do my best to be caught up by the end of the weekend. One thing I should point out that I guess we learned the hard way yesterday between myself and a listener. If you've sent me an email and you haven't heard back, you might want to check your spam because the tech folks don't love me so much, and I found some emails in my spam. My Gmail doesn't show the spam numbers like some other ones do, so if you've sent me an email or vice versa, just check your spam. But if you still haven't, and if I've glossed over it by any chance, I'm human, I apologize. I do my best to give everybody a quality email in return for yours. And I'm going to try by Monday to put together an email episodes because I've gotten so many just fantastic emails over the last several days with people's awakening experiences and even families being reunited over the truth. It's quite amazing. So again, it's theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. And join the conversation on the website. I actually got a note from our website provider yesterday. It said the traffic has been off the chain. So a lot of interaction, a lot of like-minded people being able to link up with each other and have a great conversation about the flat earth and, other things in the truth community. So stop on by, say hello. It is theflatearthfiles.com. Again, it's theflatearthfiles.com. Jump in the chat. If you have any questions, you drop it in the forum and put it out there for the community to answer as well. All right, we have all that out of the way. It is time for the main event. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us tonight for this episode, joining us from West Texas, it is Kevin from Texas. And good evening again, sir. How are you doing?
Good evening, George. I'm doing good.
It's great to have you on the podcast. Thanks for reaching out. As we always do, please do introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes, so to everybody out there hearing, my name's Kevin. I'm from West Texas, El Paso. Born and raised here. 31 years old, and I was very excited to find this podcast. I've been down, as we like to call it, the rabbit hole, probably for about a year. But I've always been very inquisitive about all these things that they're trying to indoctrinate us with. Wasn't a very sure believer of NASA, space, moon landing. Just was very hard for me to swallow and accept. But thankfully I met a brother of mine. He's one of my best friends right now, and he's the one that basically, once we talked about it one evening, he was like, "Hey, let me show you a couple of things that I think might interest you." And sure enough, it was almost like confirmation to the feeling that I had that something just wasn't quite right. If I know you understand, George.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I am from El Paso. I love this city. I was in Austin the last 2 years, and we just moved back, fortunately, just because of family, and we had to make that move. But it's been uh, it's been awesome just to experience, the community. I went into the website as well too. I've chatted a couple of people in there, and I'm just kind of like getting my wheels going in all this. I think you had a guest, I think not too long ago. I think in 2 episodes before. He was talking about he's all about action. Um, I'm kind of like that too. I want to see something be done with this, but I also I love speaking. I've always been really good at speaking, and I think I've always used my voice to uh, get the point across and try to be somewhat of a leader. But I'm just very honored to be here with you, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's absolutely a pleasure to have you, and you. We need more of these voices. We don't have enough voices, and I'm so happy to see people, because this is, even in the truth community, I will honestly say that I have noticed in the last almost 4 or 5 months, people are starting to let down their guard just a little bit. I do a live show once a year on my other podcast, and it's a very large audience. And one of the callers even brought it up, and I kind of poked my eye in the chat room to see if we were going to get any. Oh, here we go with the flatter, and it wasn't. People were making jokes about heliocentrism. So I do believe that we are on a bit of an offensive. We are. I do honestly believe we have a little momentum on our side, and we need to continue to keep it rolling.
Certainly. I feel it too. I feel there's some momentum grasping right now with society, and with obviously so many things going on right now in the world. I'm pretty sure you might have seen, but I just obviously yesterday with the whole SpaceX thing.
Yeah.
I know we'll get into that with topics and stuff, but that was just something I saw right away, and I was just like, oh well, they're trying again. They're trying to go through, through the firmament. They're trying to do all this funny stuff, and I actually took some notes. I was watching some of the videos earlier, but with time, right now I'll get into that as well, just to kind of point out a few things that I saw, and I'm just like, it's kind of funny. They're showing this and showing that, and with numerology and a lot of stuff like that, it just doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't add up at all. You mentioned going back to your upbringing and always questioning the official narrative. And when you started to let down your guard just enough to look in to the flat Earth, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, we're not on a ball spinning and hurtling through space. Was there a particular item in a video, or what was the one thing where you really thought, maybe those folks aren't as crazy as we think they are?
Well, kind of, I guess my upbringing, my father, he's a Vietnam veteran. So growing up with him, it was a very military style home.
Sure.
It was kind of like, make sure you do good in school, you handle all that stuff, but going to school, I mean, growing up and trying to take these tests and do these things that they were asking, I'm not going to say, I was a complete dummy, but, I did my best in school, and I was, I studied a lot and took the test, did best. But for some reason, every time I, got into with, when it talked about space and a bunch of stuff, like I guess I was one of those people that wasn't really intrigued much. Like I was just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm reading this McGraw-Hill book. It's got pictures and showing me stuff, and I had to take, name all the planets, all that stuff. Like to me, it just was kind of like, okay, sure. But there was that one part that I always questioned. I was like, well, why are we learning about this? And how true is this? Like I guess it just was something that just didn't sit right with me, And again, I was born in the 90s, so again, all of the system that they took over, the education, all that stuff was already implemented.
Yes.
Well within the time I was already there, so there's no way that I can comprehend it as I do now. But same with that, at some point, it just, once I finally started going down through all this stuff, now I realize why I wasn't so intrigued and so pulled to want to believe all this stuff and learn it. And I wasn't so fascinated with it. But now it just kind of makes sense, because there's just so much things that doesn't make sense. And I don't want to veer off or anything, but I just kind of want to lead off with what kind of made me think all this stuff.
Sure.
Is sure, I saw the videos. I've done all the videos, looked all the videos, but one thing stood out to me, and I've talked to some family members, specifically when I talk with my friend Matthew, who's the one that he's the one that basically opened the floodgates for this, and he's the one that pretty much solidified all this stuff in my mind. And I was like, wow, man, it makes so much sense. I was trying to tell him, I'm like, what's funny is that for 31 years old, and I am, if we draw a pie graph, we do a pie graph and we do it in a percentage of scale of like 100%. And let's say what they're teaching me about the history of Earth is only about, let's say, I'll round it up to even like 30%, right? 30% of the knowledge, right, of Earth as it was. But then the other 70%, all religions, all backgrounds, everybody believes that the Earth was flat. Why is it that I'm going to go ahead and start believing and learning this stuff that on a pie chart is only 30%? What about the other 70%? Like, what happened? Like, why am I not learning what 70% of our total, knowledge of Earth has been, but yet you want me to learn the 30%? It just didn't sit right with me. It just, it's something to make you think that, what if I was born in the 1800s? How would my mind work? I think I saw a video of this group of people. I guess they were interviewing some lady that I guess she went to school in the 1910s or 1920s or something. I can't remember. But they had asked her a question. They said, hey, when you went to school and you learned about the Earth, what did they teach you it was? And sure enough, she was like, they taught us the Earth was flat. So I'm like, okay, this is a person that just not too long ago, probably about 100 years or so, admitted that they were teaching that the Earth was flat, So it just got into my mind and thinking, I'm like, okay, well then I'm born in this era and this time, and they're teaching me about something different. Like, what happened? What changed it all? So that's where it just kind of just, it definitely, it was kind of like a eerie sense of feeling like it was just like something didn't feel right. And from that point on, it was just kind of like, what, I need to do more research. I need to figure out what's going on here, because it doesn't feel right that they're trying to teach us something. And they've taken over the whole education system. I mean, I've been listening to all your podcasts, all the episodes. I've listened to other people too. It's just, I'm dumbfounded when people want to believe in the system. They still want to be stuck in all that and believe it, but they don't think for themselves and be more of a critical thinker and think, how were people learning, 100 years ago, 200 years ago? How were they learning, and why is it that what I'm learning right now is correct and right? It doesn't sit right. I've used another example, kind of like a biblical reference, and I know it can mean so many different things, but when it's talking about, I'm pretty sure I can't recall it right now. I can't look it up right now, but I've taken some notes down. But it was, the narrow path and the wide path. And I've tried to tell this with a couple of family members, and I was just like, just think about it. I said, the narrow path, few will make it, few will go through it, few will understand it. It's just the narrow path, right? And the wide path, it's just where it's flooded. So many people, so many different ways to access it. So I kind of put it in perspective. I was like, what if the narrow path was, to say the flat Earth concept, and the wide path was, the global concept,
right?
We got heliocentric on one side, and we got geocentric skepticism in one side. And I'm just kind of like, of course everybody's going to believe the white path. It's the easy path to believe what they want you to believe right now. But the narrow path, not everybody's going to accept it. That's why nowadays, if you walk, like, we've said, if you walk to someone new that you haven't met and you just start, hey, do you believe there's this flash? They're automatically just going to be like, no, because they're on the white path, They don't want to go to the narrow path. So it's just so many concepts that, to me, almost like I said, in about a year of fully looking at information, research and everything, it's just, in a way, it's kind of a bit upsetting, because I don't consider myself young. I don't consider myself old. I'm kind of like, in the 30s right there. Like,
yeah, you're in your prime now.
yeah. And it's just, I think about the youth, and I think about, the younger generations that come, these 20-year-olds, these teens, if I was fooled at that time, how much more fooled are they? So it's almost like such an importance that for the Flat Earth community, all of us, to understand that, there's people such as myself that we want to lead these young people to understand, open their eyes, allow them to be more critical thinkers. I mean, I think you had a guest not too long ago was saying, he was talking about it the other day. He said, when I went to school, and so they're not taught to, critically think anymore. And if they say anything about oppose, or they oppose whatever's being said, they're reprimanded. They can't think for themselves. You got to follow the answer, study the answer, because it's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, they've rigged the game to as the way the education system is set up now is a lot of the financing is based on certain testing. So instead of teaching the children how to think critically and so on and so forth, and maybe try to debunk things like how you're supposed to in science, that they just educate the children towards memorizing test time. I think in Texas it's called the STAR test. Different states have their own variations.
Yeah, it is STAR now. When I took it back, and it was TAKS or something, TAKS, I believe it was. But everything's changed so much now. Like before, It was only like a few credits to graduate. Now it's almost like 30 something credits to graduate high school. Again, they also impose so much more for them to memorize.
Yep. And that's what it is. Education has become memorizing versus actually teaching, challenging, them to write certain things, base their opinions on certain things, let them find the answers, challenge the books. And when he talked about McGraw-Hill, if you look at the history of people who have owned that the second largest book distributor in the world, as far as educational books, right behind Pearson. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell's father owned them, from the mid 80s until he died in, was it 91 or 92 when the Masada offed him. And then Leon Black from Apollo Management, he had direct ties to Jeffrey Epstein. So the people who are, running the people who make our textbook are not good people. And, the same people who tell us we live on the globe are the same people who tell us that if you don't get a certain jab, you're going to die. And if a guy wears a dress, he's a woman. So these are all connected. And that's what people need to understand.
Excuse me. Yeah. It's, I call it's the evil in this world.
Yep.
I think just 2 days ago, I was talking about this. It's just, and I hate to reiterate, but I know we've been talking about it almost in every podcast. Is Wernher von Braun?
Yep.
It's and I just I did my research too, and I figured I'm like, okay, I'm from El Paso, and El Paso has I believe, I'm not sure if it's anymore. I can probably fact check it, but it's like the second largest fort in the United States. I'm not for sure, but Fort Bliss, it's been here for quite some time. I mean, they got NASA, they got, I had to research, and I actually found out that, once Project Paperclip happened and all this, 125 members, including himself, were installed here in Fort Bliss, Texas, where they began doing the launching of the V2 rockets at the White Sands in New Mexico.
That's right.
So to me, I'm just kind of like, sometimes it's about connecting the dots, and that's why I feel like something just me and personally in my personal experience, it's kind of like, wow, I'm here, like this connects me to that history, like I know it, like, but this is someone that again, when I try to explain it to a couple of family members and they were kind of like, their eyes kind of opened up wide, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, you thought they won. I mean, you thought they lost, but really what they did, they came over here and and then headed the whole NASA, did this whole thing, even did he served as a spokesman for like I think 3 Walt Disney TV programs, Man in Space.
Yep.
Um, it just kind of like like he had his footprint in all these things, and I'm like, how do you accept an organization that was led by someone that was it was what, an SS officer too? I mean, I'm like, as long as I say the Nazi word, they're just like, whoa, bad guy. I'm like, yeah, but yet you accept an organization right now that was pretty much kind of founded, created, led by this person. That's evil. How do you not see the evil in that? And then so my family members will be like, whoa, okay, that kind of doesn't sit well with me. And I'm like, yeah, it shouldn't. But people don't do the research. People don't want to, it's like what you've been saying, television, they television, they tell you what they want you to see.
That's right. They program you.
Yeah. And I honestly, I've stopped watching news as much as I did because, growing up to me, news was like, I want to keep up to date with what's going on. But sure. I didn't realize that when I'm trying to keep up to date, I'm really just listening and looking at what they want me to see and believe. So I recently stopped, being so like, up in the morning, watch the news, see what's going on. I do it now because I want to know both sides, of the story. I'm not going to go and debate or anything like that if I don't know what's going on what they're telling.
Right.
So I do it now from a different perspective, not so much as like believe. Like I said, I'll kind of like look at it, hear what they're saying, then I kind of decide, kind of like just laugh a little bit. I'm like, wow, I'm like, they're really trying to tell people this. I mean, just yesterday it was the SpaceX,
Yes.
With I saw the video, I saw it, how it just. And so there was a part, it was some snippets where they were showing like, for some reason to me it was just like, why are they showing us suddenly snippets of like, they'll show you like the fisheye lens, you got to see the Earth and the curvature of it, so but just momentarily, and then they switch off to the rockets, then back to this, and then sure enough, boom, it apparently something problem with the engine. But you see, they wanted to show you the engines because they're already pre-programming your mind to see that they already knew something's going on with the engines. Oh, this is the reason why, something didn't go right because of the engines. If you ask me, quite frankly, I don't think it has nothing to do with the engines. You're talking about these super high intelligent, scientists, whatever, rocket scientists, and they're going to have a problem with something that big. The way it was kind of flipping and doing it, at suddenly it hit 38 kilometers. I'm going to tell you, honestly, I'm thinking, they're something around with the firmament, something, it just didn't allow it. And, but then again, that's just me and what I've done the research and how I have a different perspective of it. But people will see it and be like, oh, it was a 50-50, didn't go right. They knew this was going to happen. So, they're going to try again. And hopefully by, 2025, we got Artemis 3 going. I mean, it's just so much, George. It's just so much that when you finally remove the veil from your eyes, you kind of just see the thing, and it's a madness. I mean, $3 billion on the contract for Artemis 3 for the moon landing.
Yep, it's
$3 billion.
That's right, and the same people who are in on that are the same people who are in on the military-industrial complex. It's all about the money. It's all about the power. By the way, did you see when the camera zipped to Elon, he had his hands together doing the old pyramid sign?
Yes, yeah.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, you definitely cannot. Oh man, it's that my family was asking me, they're like, well, what's your whole big deal? Why do you want to know true? What will it change? I'm like, I'll tell you one thing, what it impacts is that we talk about, if they finally come clean, just like in the Level documentary, talk about, they'll come clean. Oh, I'm sorry, we'll pay you back money. sure, that's fine. It might not happen. But the problem is that this is money that people are, not receiving for other things that are most necessary right now in the world.
Yeah.
Talk about 72 million a day, I think it was for NASA.
Yep.
That's money that, being thrown into some project like the $3 billion for something that we're gonna land on the moon. I honestly don't. What? We never even went. And $3 billion when there's so much poverty. There's so many things going on out here in right here in our realm, in our earth that needs the most attention. We're talking about programs for helping people how to, learn how to garden, how to self-sustain. Problems with our criminal justice system, all that stuff. That's money that could go into the prisons for reform acts and all these things to like help help people get prepared before they get out, so that recidivism is it's not such a big thing. It just cuts that down. That's money that we could be using for all that. And to me, it's just like that's what's impactful, is that everybody's being brainwashed to go ahead, don't worry about it, your taxpayers going to go out to this, because you know what, we're going to the moon, and guess what, in a few more years after that we're going to Mars.
And people take it hook, line, and sinker.
And yet, something happens out here or here that's orchestrated, and we're running crazy for toilet paper and chicken and eggs and milk and all this stuff. And when they're not teaching people how to be self-sustainable, like you said, natural resources that we can provide for ourselves. Absolutely. It's so much control. I'm telling you, just recently too, I've been trying to not debate, but I'm trying to push all these little ideas and information to my family members, and trying to let them know, you'd be like, we're not running out of resources, but that's what it is that they do all this because they don't want to lose control. You're dependent on a government for almost absolutely everything, but it wasn't made that way. I believe our Creator, my God, he didn't intend for us to live this way where we're dependent on the government. Like, no, everything here in this earth was here for us so that it doesn't run out. We have the resources, the means to be able to self-sustain, survive, and live on. But that's the problem, is that they don't want to lose that power. So they're not going to come clean any day soon. I believe they're going to say, oh, you know what? Yeah, we faked this. They're going to keep pushing it off. I mean, just like all the presidents before, since I think it was Obama and everybody, they've been telling, oh, in the next year, we're going to go here. Oh, in the next year, and in the next year, and the next president too, and the next year.
Kick the can down the road.
Exactly. And keep people just kind of, hooked in there and just, oh, don't worry about it. Next year we'll be here. I kind of had a funny thought in my mind. It's kind of like I'm in Texas, and I know some Texas listeners, if they're listening, they might not agree with me with this, but I'm not a Dallas Cowboys fan, but they're kind of like the Dallas Cowboys. This is our year. This is our year. Yeah. This is our year. And it's
Tony Romo like fumble. Oh no.
But there's just so much information, George, and I'm just happy that, at least in my life, whether I go today, tomorrow, or whenever is my time, I'm not going to leave and depart this realm knowing that, oh, I never had the chance to go to Mars. No, it's not like that. And that's why I think since I was growing up, since I was a young kid, I didn't fall for that. It was hard for me to believe, oh my goodness, yeah, we're in this solar system, we're hurtling across, the universe and all that stuff. Like, it just, I don't know if there's some people out there, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but I believe there's some of us that just, no, especially the young ones, the young generation. It's just hard. It wasn't easily digestible for me. But once I opened up went down the rabbit hole, this stuff just clicks, and it just, if you allow yourself to have an open mind, it's so revealing, and I just hope that I can, do my part, like I said, I try to do my part with people that I meet. I've learned not to go straight to that. We can't go straight to flat Earth
Yeah,
because that's obviously
you got to break the ice, otherwise you'll chase
yeah,
them away for sure.
yeah, and I've learned how to do that, and it's actually worked. I've been able to, work my way around with that, and I see that, once we have the tools necessary, the right words, the right ideas, and I think this is probably why, this momentum that we feel is increasing because of that, because we have people such as yourself. There's a couple of other, YouTubers and other people that I've seen, obviously before they get taken down or whatnot, but they're divulging all this information that's helpful to the community, to us, to help us, so that when we're on the streets, we're able to make connections, make relations with people, and sure enough, little by little, we can teach them this stuff, and then they're a little bit more, open-minded to the fact of, okay, that makes a little sense, as opposed to back in the day, obviously everybody's just flat earth, flat earth, flat earth. So yeah, obviously it was a quick way to just kind of like, let people just, oh yeah, no. I mean, I've heard it. I think you said yourself that you just weren't, for a while, you didn't know about so much flat earth on stuff, but, once you found the right information, then, that's the key to understanding all this.
Yep, and I think if you leave the breadcrumbs, and if you excuse me 1 second, thought I was going to. Sorry about that, folks. Had a sneeze. But it's important that you leave good breadcrumbs. And as Kevin was saying earlier, you have to break the ice. And at the same time, they have to be willing to. The old you can lead a horse to water, but it's up to them to drink it. You've made a couple of great points, and two particular points I wanted to kind of expand on. Number one, with the news, one of the things that I found tricky once when you kind of fully wake up and realize that I always thought news, you'd wake up in the morning, turn on your Fox News or your MSNBC or whatever it is that you'd watch, and you'd have your coffee, and you'd walk out the door, like you said, full of information and ready to debate your coworkers around the water cooler, which turns out being some trivial stuff that is completely lies. And that is another task as a truther. You're like, well, now I have to discern what is really going on. Every news story, when you're fully awake, you realize these news stories are meant to evoke certain emotions and get you to try to think a certain way. And I always, now that I'm awake, I look at news as an acronym: north, east, west, south. They want your brain to be scattered in all four directions. There's a fine line between misinformation, being misinformed and uninformed. That's kind of the area where I find myself trying to be right there between being misinformed and uninformed.
Correct. Yes. I mean, it is, like I said, I don't pay attention to news in that way anymore.
Yep.
But I do it, like I said, because, you gotta know the enemy. When you're going to battle, you're not just going to show up, blindly. You got to understand where they're coming from and what angle. So I do it in that sense now, just to, like I said, to see what they're really telling people out there. Exactly.
You have to know the enemy. That is a big one. The other thing you really hit a home run on, and this is the rabbit hole that I've been going down as much as I can. Certainly at some point during World War II, I'm thinking around 1943, we started getting some of the German intelligence. And some of that intelligence we came across was New Swabia and the information that Germany had on Antarctica, because we're talking about a 4-year war. I mean, some of these guys had been away from their family for 4 years. And then the next year, you're going to load up and send all these literally battleships, this entire fleet down to Antarctica. So I'm thinking that they knew. They went down there and they validated, there is the firmament, because if you start shortly after that, you nailed the hammer on the head. 1955 was Man in Space with Wernher von Braun and Walt Disney. And Walt Disney was a 33rd degree Freemason. So I think between 46 and the early 50s, we went from science to science fiction.
Yep. And it's true. That's one thing that I've also talked about too when I try to, convince people is that, when they're the 33rd degree, how many of our presidents, I can't even do the fact check right now, but if you look back in the history, how many presidents were of the 33rd degree? You know, they're all they're all part of this, Freemasonry. Like they're all part of this thing, and it's no coincidence, um, none at all. But yeah, I mean, when Antarctica, I mean, just itself, when you try to argue with someone or you try to tell them, and they're like, no, no, that doesn't make any sense. They just probably don't want us to go down there. Well, I'm like, well, why? Why did, however many countries, I think it was 30, 40 different countries, they all get together and they say, okay, let's not let nobody in there, let's hold this key, this power, this knowledge that we know something so that we could just have them look here, not there where they're supposed to be looking, I think it was one of your guests. I love that he talked about, I think it was Chris. I think it was him. He was talking about the, how they do meetings. They go behind a closed door and there's no cameras and stuff. And he said, it's just like your children. You're not going to tell them, you're not going to discuss everything that you need to do or what's really going on right in front of them. You go out to the basement, you go out to the backyard or something, and then you come back inside. When I try to tell people, I'm like, that's what happened right there. They're like, oh, well, we have to trust them. Okay, trust them, but why? Why? And they're like, well, what do you mean you can't go to Antarctica right now? I'm pretty sure if I had the millions of dollars, I could probably go there. I'm like, yeah, good luck, buddy. You can't do that. And then they're just like, well, why? And then we're like, exactly. This is exactly why we're on right now on what we're trying to uncover, what we're trying to, get them to reveal, to understand that there's a reason why they don't. I honestly believe, what was it? General Byrd, was that his name?
That's right.
Everything he talked about, I honestly believe it's true. I obviously believe it's true. It's this world is it's massive. I think I was hearing something else earlier too. They were talking about that the maps, the way they're outlined, that they're not entirely true. They're a little edgy, a little sketchy here like that, but the way that the continent, that's not exactly how they are. Because how true can we be of that? And that talks about the grandness of God, and how great this place is that He made for us. And I'm telling you, I growing up here, born and raised here in El Paso, the Franklin State Mountain Park. There's like a top peak that you can climb, right? And there's an area that you can go up, and they call it Monday's Gap, which is most people go. You can go up there and you can run up there, and then it kind of does a U-turn and then laps right back down. But if you have a park ranger, someone, they can take you up past Monday's Gap, some more intermediate type of hike, now you're kind of grabbing on rocks and using your knees and stuff to climb up, and you get up to the highest peak of the mountain, right? And I remember, I now I was talking to this with my coworker, with Matthew, and I told him, I said, wow, man, I said, I'm just remembering something right now. I said, when I went up there, I was about maybe 14, 15 years old, and we went up there as a part of it was the El Paso Police Explorers program, right? And
Okay.
We went up there as a group. I was in the group as well. And when we got up there to the top, the scenery is, I remember now, it's just, there's places where you could see the White Sands area. Then you
Wow.
go a little bit more further back and you could see where Cloudcroft begins, where the pine trees and Ruidoso and all that. And just a 360 view, now that I remember it in my mind, it's like when they try to talk to you about the curvature and like, the drop and all that stuff, I'm like, now I look around, like, there was no such thing as no curvature. I mean, I'm talking about from El Paso, I could see all the way where New Mexico and Cloudcroft, where the pine trees begin, you could see the coloration of the land from desert, white sands, a little bit more brown, and then suddenly green. I don't even know how far that is, I mean. But I would love to try to see if, somehow we could measure that and see that, and I would be able to measure it. And that's from my own eyes. not an iPhone, camera. No, this is with my own ocular vision. I was able to see that far. There's no better feeling, once you're down this rabbit hole and you finally remember your experience in the past. And I'm like, wow, it was right there in front of me the whole time.
Yeah, precisely. I had the same thought in bringing back the visions from Manitou Springs in Colorado. You could see to Kansas. You could see forever. And the horizon was completely flat. There was no curvature whatsoever. But again, we have to be, I wasn't at that part of my life where I was willing to open my mind that far quite yet, unfortunately.
Right.
But now I'm really hoping in the next year I still have friends back there, obviously. And I'd love to go back and climb it one more time and take a picture, and that would be a keeper for sure.
Oh, I am, now that I said, I moved back now. Now that I'm here, it's in my bucket list. Like at the top of it, I'm like, I need to go back up there again. Cause you could do it. It's usually about if you go like at 7 a.m, you get up to the very top, probably about like 12 o'clock. And then coming down is about to like 3, 4 o'clock. So almost in a day's worth, but still I'm like, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to take some pictures.
That's awesome.
I want to share it with the community and anybody else I might ask, and just be like, look, how is this possible?
Exactly. It's with the math, their math. It's their math. And of course they'll bring up refraction and all this other scientists. And what are you going to do? Two things I really want to again go back on that you mentioned. Number one, shout out to Paul, who emailed me on April 12th. And he shared this with me. I may have come across it before, but I don't recall it. One of the main parts, they talk about if you spend the however many thousands of dollars, they'll fly you to Chile or whatever, and then they'll take you to the little ceremonial part of Antarctica where they have the thing in the ground and the penguins are there. You take your pictures and you head back. I didn't know the two names of the islands, and I looked these up. This is legit. Shout out to Paul. One of the islands is called Deception Island, and the other one is called Rothschild Island, and it is named after Jacob Rothschild. So, and you guys can look it up and verify for yourselves. It's 100% legit. So, shout out to Paul for pointing that out to me.
Big shout out to him.
That's big time.
Thanks, Paul.
You can look it up right on the old Wikipedia. It's right there. The other big thing is one president that nobody ever talks about, and me too. And he was a Freemason, and it's interesting because he was the 33rd president, and Harry Truman was a 33rd degree Freemason. Now, listen, I think he became president the day Lincoln was shot, too. Lincoln assassination. Let me just fact check myself while I have my computer right in front of me. It was April 15th. I was wrong. Okay. Maybe the 12th was the Titanic. But Truman was inaugurated, which is weird, April 12th, 1945. And he was given his 33rd degree Freemason on October 19th, 1945. So, 6 months after he was in office, he became a 33rd degree Freemason. And he was president from 45 to 53. All of this while high jump and all this other stuff was going on.
Wow. And you said April 15th. Remember, you were saying earlier, I think in another episode, you're saying April 15th to April 19th.
Yeah, that's
when usually all these.
Yeah. That's why I do the live show every April 19th. That's a very significant date with the Satan worshipers, for lack of better words. You look at what happened at Waco and Oklahoma City. They were both April 19th events. The Columbine shooting was April 20th.
Of course. Wow. It's just. It's almost like, it's almost like a spin in the face. Sometimes it feels that way, like
it is, but at the same time, it's right under our nose. We just refuse to look at it.
Exactly. Deception, like the deception, like it's just, wow. Like, it's right there. Like it's almost like they're not afraid to tell you, like, right. Like, look here, haha, in your face. And it's like, But people just think, oh, what a unique name, It's definitely it's troubling. Like I said, there's just so much information out there that needs to be, understood and not be misled, because I think that's the problem, right now it's really bad. I mean, just with everything, like you were talking about, the Bud Light commercial stuff, like there's just so much information out there that you throw out there to keep everybody distracted.
Precisely. Yeah, with the
You
dude
know?
in the dress on the beer and everybody got all
Yeah,
worked up for a week.
yeah. I mean, instead, like we should be talking about all this, like I said, because it's, to me, like I said, it's troubling because especially in the education system, it's, they don't teach, these young kids about, um, how to handle your finances better, how to, learn trades, learn things that are going to be beneficial. They're not doing none of that stuff. They're limiting what we're able to do for ourselves, and they're creating, you know, more dependency on, like, robots and things that are, do our jobs. And so children don't grow up with that initiative to want to learn things and to do it for themselves, because they're just kind of like, oh, what do I need it for? There's technology now.
Yep.
I don't need to, uh I mean, back in the day, I still remember my dad used to take us on trips. We used to go everywhere, in Roswell, basically almost all of New Mexico. I've been through all those areas and visited Silver City, all these places, but I remember that my father, back in those days, he had a map, a foldable map.
Absolutely. We didn't
A
have
foldable
we didn't
map,
even have a TomTom back then. We had a straight up
No,
map.
it was a map, and it's like, if you try to introduce that nowadays to, let's say, and I'm not saying that all youth is, ignorant, they're
Of
not dumb,
course.
but the scale of it, if you hand it to someone, they're just going to be like, what do I do with this? I'm lost. I can't get to my destination where there's food, water, and supplies. Let me just pull out my phone. Oh, but you don't have a phone. Oh, well, then I guess, I'm goner.
That's why I drive a
And
stick shift. I can leave my windows down and I'm not have to worry about anybody stealing it.
that's so true. No, you're right. There's all those things that we're moving away from it, and it's scary to see, because, when we think about it, like I said, we don't know when the time's coming. We don't know that end time. We don't know if it could be tomorrow or in 100 years. We don't know when. But at the rate that we're going, with our society, with our civilization, the way that we're going, it's scary to see that, all this power is being given to just an organization. I mean, like I said, Matthew had taught me too, said, hey, they're trying to take all this power, like by, 2030.
Yep.
They're trying to get, created a one world, power with, and all this stuff. And I've seen, he's shown me so many different other documentaries. I've, like I said, I could sit here online and talk about so many different things because I've been down it, blessed to be for, like, almost a year. But it, it's scary. It is scary, and we need to put all this information out more. People need to start waking up, kind of like the Matrix, right? Give them that red pill, right?
That's right. And there's
hold
some
them tight by
people
the
say,
hand.
well, it's 2030. It's way down the road. Listen, 2015, when you say 2015, that seems like a couple of years ago. 2015 was 8 years ago. We are only 6.5 years away from 2030.
Exactly. And I mean, there's just so many things. Like I said, when I try to, talk to whoever I want to talk to, I don't go straight. I drop the breadcrumbs and do all this stuff. But it's like you show them little things. Like I've told them about, like, the preconditioning of so many things, and I never thought about it. But when you learn about it too, it's like kind of like the globes and stuff. And when they teach you, like, when I've let off with this before with the Universal pictures, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
what's the first thing you see when you see a movie? And they go,
Globe. Yeah.
oh, it's like that Universal. I'm like, yeah, but not the Universal, but what is it? It's like, oh, it's the Earth, I'm like, that's what you think it is, the Earth? He's like, yeah, well, that's our Earth, that's us. And I'm like, and you see it every time you see a movie. It's preconditioning your mind.
And then there's their way of telling us the truth. Every time a Disney thing kicks off, it kind of throws the firmament at you. That little sparkly thing over the top of Disney that pops up.
Yeah. What did you say? You said Hollywood gives us.
The lies in the media and truth in Hollywood.
Yes. Yeah. And it is, and it's just, you know, it's tough. It's tough, George. But I'm just glad that um, I'm able to have all this knowledge. And one thing that I will touch on greatly is, I thank my friend Matthew for this, because he did say, it was like, reiterate the fact of, discernment, the gift. It's a gift.
It is.
I feel it's a gift because we are given this gift. I feel I was given this gift to understand, discern all these things. But it's a gift to be able to use right now, you know, to use it and appreciate it, because it is, it's almost like you were given this gift of vision to be able to help others remove that, that veil from their eyes, and I'm grateful. I've gone through so many things in my life. And obviously, won't go into detail on that stuff, but it hasn't been an easy life, but I'm truly blessed and grateful that God has helped me, and He's helped me in so many ways. He's been there with me. I know He holds me by the hand and carries me in the right direction. And I know to this day that this right here, where I'm at right now, is not by, some coincidence, something. No, it feels right because it's His gift to connect people in this world that I believe, we're on the narrow path. I'm not on the wide path, because that's the easy way in life. The things that are the truth in this life, they will set you free, but it's hard. It's hard, and nobody wants to do it, because if it was that easy, when I try to, convince my family members to, it's like, well, why aren't we all just thinking the earth is flat then? Why isn't it not the earth is flat? And to the globe people, or people that believe the earth is round, and, we think that they're crazy and all that stuff. Why isn't it not like that?
Yeah.
It's a blessing. I feel it is, and I'm just thankful, to have this information, because yeah, surely my children, I have a daughter, and I hope as she gets older, I hope that I'm able to, teach her this stuff through the discernment that God gives me, and hopefully I'm able to help her understand these things. And I have faith that she'll be able to also, pass this on, hopefully, once she understands it, because these generations that are to come, they're going to be here after us, and we just got to hope that they're making the right choices and helping fight the evil. It's always a good versus evil fight in this world. It's all principalities and spiritual warfare.
Yeah, 100%. It's exactly what it is. It's good versus evil, and if you're going to teach your children anything, discernment should be it's certainly in your top three. Because if you look what they've thrown at us the last 3 years, discernment can literally save your life.
Yes, sir.
And that's, do you want to go down the narrow way and be the odd man out, but still have your health and your faith? And not that if you went the other way, you didn't have your faith. Don't please misconstrue me, but everything that comes from your television is meant to deceive you. Now, every now and then, of course, they're going to sprinkle in some truth with the lies, because if they straight up lied to us every single time, people would eventually catch on. And that is at the core of deceit, is to take a little truth, mix it in with a little lies, just enough to deceive you to get you go down the path that they want you to go down.
Exactly. I mean, it's hard for them to keep up with their lies now.
Yeah, exactly. Just like when you were a kid, you told a couple fibs and you're trying to remember what you said to mom last time, and you end up, getting yourself caught eventually.
And the technology as well with it too. I mean, we've seen so many. I mean, it's just some crazy dumb stuff. When they talked about also, we lost all the the data and all that stuff. We don't have that technology anymore. Okay, all right. Well, but we had technology back then in those times, but then now we don't have it. They know that there's going to come a time when they're not going to be able to keep up with technology. People are asking, well, when they do this, and they go to the moon, or they do an orbital pass or whatever, are they going to do a live feed? And they're going to tell you, No, probably not. We'll just do a couple of cut-ins here and cut-ins out. Well, of course, because you know that there's so much technology out here and people that are going to be able to recognize the live feed and be able to see like, it doesn't look right. They might even see a couple of air bubbles, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen all those videos. I've seen all the NASA stuff, and it's just, you know, the wires and all this stuff. And I'm just kind of like, you know, that's why the people that have not seen that stuff, they believe it. But it's not until you see it that then do you believe, and you're just like, whoa, like wait, because it's there. All this information is there. It's there for us. We could see it, and there's people like I said, as yourself, that are helping us see that. But the problem is that's what I'm saying, is that youth or humanity is they're losing the initiative to go and get online and look it up. Instead, they rather be on their social media. They rather be doing other things, other different vices that are, you know, constructed and created there by the government to keep you busy so that you don't go in there and look at all this stuff up.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Indeed, our priorities. And Kevin just mentioned about the water bubbles. Pause the podcast for a second and look up NASA Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. A lot of these things they film are right there in Houston, Texas, 13,000 Space Center Boulevard. You'll see things that look like the ISS, and you'll see people underwater doing their training. And then you'll also see a very famous picture of George H.W. Bush being wheelchaired in, and in the background, you see one of the guys who, quote unquote, was on the ISS standing in front of a green screen.
Yep. I mean, the movie, what was it, Interstellar and all that stuff? Like when I use this also for like a convincing argument. I'll tell them, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, if you know they could do this, you know, with Sandra Bullock or whatnot, you know, and you see it in your own TV, and you're just like, wow, that looks so real. I'm like, why can't NASA do that also? And yet you don't know who X and X, whoever the astronauts are, whoever, you know. You see them, you don't know them, so you don't think that they're a movie actor or something, but they're doing exactly the same thing that Sandra Bullock was doing. So why can't they do that and make you believe that they're also in space? Precisely. And so then, you know, they'll sit there and their brain will kind of be, you know, clicking a little bit and be like, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe. I'm like, oh, maybe. Every time I hear them say the maybe word,
you're getting closer.
I count it as a win. I do. I tally it on my little, you know, because it's better to hear that maybe than no. Because once you got them at maybe, you're just kind of like, okay, you know, you planted the seed now.
That means, yeah, exactly.
And eventually,
you got them thinking.
Exactly. And you see, that is the part right there that helps us, you know, understand that critical thinking aspect of life that I think every human being should have. We don't do it as much. There's not a lot of critical thinkers in this world because sometimes their upbringing, you know, they were oppressed or they were abused or something. So they don't want to go back to that because there's a negative connotation to their experience. You know, but if you help them, you know, understand like, hey, it's okay for you to ask questions. It's okay for you to think on your own. Then it allows that mind to grow and be able to say, well, maybe it is this other way. Because all I've been ever taught is that it's just this way.
That's right. And there's legitimate meaning to the truth will set you free because, you know, for me, Flat Earth was that last part of the puzzle. And just like Manly P. Hall said, there was a great veil that fell. And I realized I only answer to God, right? I'll respect man's laws and everything, but I only answer to God. I don't have to go to the Constitution to say I have freedom of speech. God gave me the right to have freedom of speech. And they've been very smart about how, again, once, like you said, through the education system, how we always refer back to the government said I can do it, right? And that's kind of how they get us hook, line, and sinker, is to completely depend on them. And even going way back to what you said 30 minutes ago is about how they want us to depend on them. People freak out when there's a shortage of something at the grocery store. Oh my gosh, there's not enough of this because it's not at the grocery store. And instead of us figuring out alternative ways to supply ourselves with these type of things, we just keep going to other grocery stores. Because even if you hoard so much of X, Y, or Z, whether it be rice or corn or whatever, it eventually could run out. What are you doing personally to be able to replenish your stock? Make sure, if it's at all possible, grow your own food. Not just because you can supply yourself, because it's not having all that nasty GMO stuff in it.
Exactly. And I agree with that completely. My grandfather, I remember when I was a child, he had a garden in his backyard, and he passed away when I was about maybe 8 years old. So I was very young, but I remember that growing up with him, like I would go back there with him in the weekends and go back. He'd be back there like 6, 7 in the morning, watering, raking, doing all that stuff. But he had all kinds of different vegetation and fruits and trees, all this stuff, and it was beautiful to me because I was like, we don't got to go to the store down there and buy something. Like I just pick it out of the tree, and it was fresh, natural.
Yeah, it's the best.
It's let me tell you, it's so scary because I worked through the pandemic, right? When it hit in March. I was still here in El Paso, so I was working here in El Paso, and I worked at a grocery store. And when it hit, they gave us these little papers that said you're an essential worker. And I remember our boss giving it to us. He's like, "Hey," which is kind of funny because it's funny that they knew this was already going to happen, right?
They already had those papers ready to go.
Yeah, they had them, and I remember they called us in, and one of my boss, he called me. He said, "Here, you need to sign a paper too that they were giving us this too," which was kind of funny at the time. I was like, "Okay, let me sign." He's like, "Carry this with you if it happens or if it doesn't, but just have it on you because you'll be an essential worker and you'll be able to come through here and work." But at the time I was like, "Come through here? Well, what? You're making it seem like I gotta go through the DMZ or something. Like what are you talking about? Like I gotta, and he was just like, "Just hold it." And sure enough, I think it was like a couple of days later, the next day or something, they're like, "Everybody stay home. Nobody move unless you're an essential working and go." So I was just like, okay, grab my little paper. I stuffed it in my backpack. I lived relatively close to, I was like probably about 5-minute walk away from my work. So I ended up walking, and I'm going through this empty lot. Sure enough, there's 2 police units, and they're in their vehicles, and I'm walking by, and sure enough, they roll up right next to me. And they look at me, and I think they didn't really question me so much because I was wearing, my uniform with the hat and the logo of the store right across the street. So they just looked at me and they said, "Hey, you work there?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And I started getting my paper out. And so I kind of opened it up, and they were just like, "Oh, okay, no, you're good." They didn't even look at it, but they were just like, "Yeah, you're good. Go ahead." So, I was just like, okay, that's weird, like what's going on? But what I'm trying to get to the point is that once we had people going in there shopping, like, when you work there and you see everybody coming in and, they don't have the freedom to be out and about when they go in there, it was like almost chaos. They're walking in there trying to buy this. There was fights ensuing here and there, over this and that. Like, and I'm trying to work through it. And it was just kind of like something to see in a lifetime where you're just like, dang, what's going on? Like they're fighting over something that I think is not going to be available when the next truck's coming out. Oh, but wait, there's no truck now coming out because the shipping department, the factory is closed now too. So now they don't have, they're not going to be here anymore. And so it was just something that's very scary to see the dependency of people, not just the control of the government that, kind of felt like a martial law, can't leave your house, all this other stuff. But there was a snowstorm that hit in Austin in 2021, I believe, and they weren't prepared. I think you might have heard of it.
Oh yeah, my daughter was down there. The ice storm. They were out of power a week.
Yeah, I actually was there, and it was horrible. I mean, our apartment was like, it was all electricity, so electricity went out. We had no means. But I thankfully, again, I worked at a grocery store there, and I remember that we were called in to go. Only like 5 of us showed. It was only like 3 cashiers, myself, and another groceries person, and nobody wanted to, come to work because I mean, the condition of the drive was just horrible. You couldn't drive. It was all ice everywhere. So there's a long line of people waiting outside, and they're just begging, open the doors. We need to get in and buy stuff. I'm like, I can't let you in. Like, we don't have money. Like, we don't have the keys and stuff. So they said there's only one person that has the combination, and she's willing to come over here, but her parents said that they're not allowing her to drive. So if anybody wants to go, you guys, somebody can go and pick her up. So I was like, okay, you know what? I need to get stuff for me too. So let me go pick her up. Long story short, she came back, we opened the store. The hordes of people, it just something you wouldn't ever see, but you will only see in like a movie. These lines were long all the way to the back. I walked the store in the beginning, was able to get a couple of stuff, put it to the side. By the end of the night, this store looked like an apocalypse, like empty shelves, everything. There's people standing outside. They're arguing. They're like, come on, you guys got to let us in. There's still 150 people waiting outside and cold waiting. I got 200 people inside the store, and then one of our employees couldn't close the door. So I said, here. I walked over there, closed the door. I said, the people are like mad. They're like, hey, man, you got to think about our children. You got to think about, us. We got to get food too. And I looked at them. I said, look, let me tell you something. You need to relax because you got to think about us too. We've been working here for like almost 12 hours straight, trying to help as much people as we can. I said, you want me to think about your children? I said, you got to think about mine too, and the people that I need to take care of as well too. We need to relax, calm down, because this is getting out of hand. We got to get these people out too, and it's probably gonna be another 2 hours. If I let you in, I'm never getting out of here. I said, that doesn't work like that. So they were like, you know what? Some people were like, yeah, guys, let's relax, let's go. And I said, they were like, are you going to open up tomorrow? I said, yeah, we'll open up again tomorrow, but we need to get out of here first. And it was handled, we left. But again, it's those situations to drive the point of this is that you see how even a single ice storm or something like that can have people, lose their sense of civility. They're just the dependency of it. And now, just to put into thought, imagine something really great as a war here in this country, something like that happens. I mean, those were just ice storms and a pandemic that was, created by them. But imagine something in the scale of that. It's scary to see that people can't think for themselves.
That's right.
They can't do things on their own.
They can't. They'll take directions and run with it without even questioning it, or like you said, using discernment. And I think that the last 3 years, I mean, obviously it had a lot of goals completed, but I think a lot of it was also more conditioning for the next one, because people will I still think people 90% will still be quick to comply.
Is that I've been hearing that a little bit later. I think I might have heard it. Is that something that they're planning on doing again?
Oh yeah, listen. Fauci told us before in 2017. He said during this administration, and he said several times over the last 6 weeks that next year we're going to have another one, and next year is the next election. So it certainly makes sense.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that's
boy. And if they spin that with a war on top of it, it's going to be mayhem.
Well, yeah. I mean, didn't they say something like that to distract? I mean, they did all this during the 2020 and all this stuff to, get somebody out of office and all this stuff. They do this purposely for a different angle. They got something in their hand right here, but they're holding something behind their backs.
Yeah, they did 100 years ago. They did the same thing just in reverse. They had a world war from 1914 to 1917, and then they had a pandemic in 1918 to for a couple of years. So they've run this playbook before, just in reverse.
Wow, I mean, they do say history repeats itself, right?
Yeah, it's the same family lineage in charge that's just passed down generation to generation. The playbook.
And I was going to say, do you believe that's something that's what the occults, the Freemasons, all that stuff, like they have this playbook,
sure, that's
scripted out? And do you believe that that's something that they have with them, that they possess, that obviously we can't get to it, but if we could get to it, what then?
That's the $1 million question for sure. It all starts with us just getting out, walking away from the program and not complying. That was the biggest thing I screamed on my other podcast for 3 years. Stop complying, for goodness sakes. Stop listening to people who don't have any control of your life.
And it's true, because they control you everything. I mean, There's so many people going out that, they were talking about the going to the court system and all this stuff. Some people are like, you don't need a lawyer. You don't need a lawyer up and all this stuff. You can do this yourself, because ultimately all those people are there to serve you, just like all these public servants. But again, it's become to a point where it's like they no longer serve us.
No.
We're the ones serving them.
That's what they believe. Absolutely. We're their minions.
And you know what? That's not right.
No, not at all.
I don't know how people can wake up every morning and be okay with that.
Yeah, supposedly when this country was founded, you were supposed to step away from the private practice and, serve a round or two in, the Senate or the state representative or whatever, and then go back to private practice. But you see how that's just been manipulated like everything else in our world, and
Right.
It's abused. And it seems like every 4 years somebody's running on term limits, and it never happens, and none of it does. It's just empty promises over and over again.
It is, because it's the same things, right? They promise you the same. They debate over the same things, over the same reasons, the same causes, and nothing ever gets done. I know that
It gets worse.
And it does. And, I think someone said it in one of your podcasts. They said it's just like, left wing, right wing, I don't care. He's like, they need each other to flap anyways.
That's right. It's the same corrupt bird. That's for sure. I wanted to ask you, we got about 20 minutes left.
Yes.
Had you gone down the rabbit holes before you got to Flat Earth, like the 9/11 and the JFK and the 1969 with the Apollo missions?
No, I actually hadn't gone down with them. I hadn't researched it or looked into it. But again, I think it was just my intuitive side. I obviously, saw it and felt it and didn't do something. But then every now and then you look at I looked at YouTube videos here and there in the years afterwards, and just see certain things where there was they're showing that there's C4 going off, all these things happening. So I didn't really dive into it. I wish I had, though. I think maybe that would have helped me go down the rabbit hole a lot sooner.
Yeah, and that's what's really interesting to me, because I'm starting to meet people where Flat Earth is one of their first rabbit holes, and I find that really, really interesting.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the pillar.
Oh, absolutely. It's the ultimate. Yeah.
That's what, if anybody ever asks me, they're like, well, why do you go with that? Why not go with, I'm like, well, because that's the pillar of it. It's the old age. It's from it all started. I said, Copernicus and all that, it's the pillar of it. I was in fourth grade, actually. I remember Miss Rebego's class, and I was thinking about this the other day too. Because I was like, when that happened, I remember I was in our apartment, and my dad turned on TV, saw it first, and he was like, whoa. And I walked in there, and I'm like, what's going on? And, he's showed us, and sure enough, when I go to get dropped off in school, they had TVs everywhere. Like, they wanted to show you this. I think about this also as they sat you there, and there was no learning. There's no, go back to math quiz, go back to whatever. No, just sit here and watch this. Again, it's no choice. They didn't give me any choice whether I wanted to see this or not. It's kind of like the preconditioning, the indoctrination, see this so that what's going on, what we want you to know. So it's just something, again, that when I was young, you don't think about those things, because obviously they're taking advantage of that you're young, fresh mind. We can manipulate it however we want to.
Absolutely.
But as you get older, all these things come back, and you're just like, now it makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, your mind is, you're basically handed over to the state from the time you're 6 until you're almost 18, if not 18. I mean, you're talking 12, and if you go to college, up to 16 years of an indoctrination, and then you get so busy with your family and work, you don't, for some people, they don't get the chance to even go down the rabbit hole to the 30s, 40s, 50s, or however old it is. And
Right.
Obviously, in some cases, the older you are, the more difficult it is to deprogram yourself. And the old saying, it's harder to tell somebody that they've been lied to than to say, hey, than just to straight out lie to them. And that is a big part of what these guys do to us.
And I'll make this rapid. I won't take too long with it, because I know we have a limited time. But I will say that my biggest challenge has been my father. Like I said, he's a Vietnam veteran. He was born in '49, and he's been the biggest challenge. When I think it was about maybe a few months back, probably 3, 4 months. I tried to talk with him. I had tried to sit down with him and try to get to him. And oh boy, good luck trying to talk to a 70-year-old man that's had 70 years of indoctrination, all this stuff that he's, he for everything he was just like, no, no, no. That looks Air Force, NASA, they're not gonna lie to us. They do all this stuff. This is what they go to school. Like it was so hard, but I had a good couple of little gut punches in there. I want to say that was kind of like he kind of like stumbled a little bit. It was just kind of like quiet, and then, well, at the end he was just like, well, what does all this mean anyways to you? What does it matter if it's true or not? Whether the Earth is flat or round. And I remember just sitting there and telling him, I said, you know what, Dad? I said, it matters to me because it's part of my history. You had your history. You had a role to play in this life. And we're coming to a point in our lives, as we go into a new generation, we have different roles. So it matters a lot to me because if it is true, if it isn't true, you know what? Guess what? I want to find out why. I want to have the free will. I think that's what ultimately God's gift to us was that, it's free will. He didn't make us. He didn't make our authorities to impose on us, their free will on us to make us choose, what they're telling us to do. We're in this life for a free will choice to choose what we want to believe. Whether we're right or wrong, that's our life. And when I told him that, he was just kind of like, you know what? Well, okay. And I said, so do you believe it now or no? He's like, I'm not too sure yet, but he's like, I appreciate the way that you're thinking. And, until I see it, I'll believe it then. And I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Is he completely on board with the moon landings and everything?
I guess he says in this time because I guess 49. He
would have been fairly, 20, right?
Yeah. So I remember I asked him and I was like, how was it? Like, what do you remember? He's like, well, it was nice. Everybody was kind of gathered up. They talked about it, but I didn't really think much of it. He was like, I just believed them, and I'm like, just like that. And he was just like, yeah, I just believe. I'm like, but now that I'm telling you this and I'm showing you this, all this, he's like, well, maybe, so there was a part that just, it's never too late, but it does get a lot harder.
Indeed.
As older than they are, because it's like you said, think about all that pre-program, all that stuff. It's harder to deprogram a computer that has, 80% of its RAM and all this stuff, fed up and you try to clear it opposed to something that's only 20%. It's a lot easier, so, but he's my dad, like I said, and he respects my views, and like I said, I respect everybody's views.
Absolutely,
I respect anybody.
And my mom's the same way. She'll be 76 this year, and you and your dad's story and me and my mom's story, they mirror each other, and it's the same with respect. I'm not going to force my mom to believe a certain way, but it's. For me, the older I get, the more almost urgent it becomes because I want to share the knowledge, and I just want the truth. I don't care what the truth is in the end. It's just very obvious that we've been lied to for a very long, long time. So, if you're in a relationship with someone and they continue to lie to you, you're not going to continue to believe that person. So why do we do the same with government? And I understand that. I mean, listen, government goes all the way back to Nimrod. The first. Some people call Nimrod the first government in the world with the Tower of Babel and everything else. And since then, it's been a power struggle of the elite to, stay illuminated at the top, keep the lower class dumb and poor, and fighting amongst themselves. And they've done a heck of a job doing that.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, oh my, we probably could have sat here and talked about so much things, even the Tower of Babel and all this stuff too. I use it as well too, and I try to, give them a little bit enlightening to their thoughts and just be like, this is a fight that, has been going on for a long time, and I feel they know the truth, and they know that some of us know the truth, but they have control over the masses for right now, and we hope that soon we get the truth. That's all I think we all want.
If you sat down with a stranger at a restaurant and you were able to lay down, if you could give them 3 flat Earth facts, what are your top 3 that you would lay down to try to get somebody to at least consider flat Earth?
Oh man, top 3. One. I mean, I would talk about the sun, the local sun. The rays. It's just something that I try to tell them, like, how it's something that's 93 million miles away, casting, light rays that are, at an angle so close. That's one thing that I would talk about. The other thing is number 2 would be the gravity hoax, buoyancy and density. That's all it is. And I believe a third one would probably be, probably with the NASA moon landing. Those videos. There was a guy talking about saying that he remembers as a child they would show these videos. It's kind of like scattered, sort of blurry movies where it was like a voice narrating saying, here we see Venus, and in the background, or but it's showing this video from like so far away, like it's like out there, and it's telecasting this vision, and then here is our blue marble Earth, and there's the moon. But then they're like, I would help them see, like, how does that technology existed back then but doesn't exist now?
Yep.
I think those,
well, they're all bangers for sure, and that would certainly get their attention. And I'm glad you brought that up, because this is the second person, an emailer, I'm going to bring up in our conversation. So this young lady, Kat from Massachusetts, she's actually been a longtime friend of our other podcast, but she emailed the other day and she made a great point, because with gravity, we talk about buoyancy and density, but to her, it never really completely checked the box. But she said, what was the big question that determined up or down? And she said in her research, she came across electrostatic force, which is governed by a law, which is not necessarily a theory. So that's something that she says, every source I've looked at says the ground has a net negative charge. So anything that is even slightly positively charged will be attracted to it according to the laws of magnetism. I just wanted to drop that in there. And this is one of the emails I'll be bringing up in a podcast in the coming days. But it's a great little nugget there.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm the same way.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It just if for some reason it just kind of cut off right now. I wasn't able to hear you fully. I know you were talking about. I think it was from Massachusetts, and then it just kind of cut off.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's
for some reason, I don't know why. It's just I didn't catch that whole part, and then that's why when it came back, I was like, "Whoa!"
It's probably the dang NSA messing with me again. She was saying one of her one of her biggest stumbling blocks when she was researching the flat Earth was gravity, and it was bogus. But she also said that while, like we say, density and buoyancy answers a lot of the questions, for her it didn't completely check the box. So she was kind of to research what determines up and down, and she discovered electrostatic force, which she says is governed by law, not just a theory. And she says every source that she's looked at says the ground has a net negative charge. So anything that is even slightly positive charged will be attracted to it according to the laws of magnetism. She goes on. I'll bring this up in upcoming podcasts when I do the listener emails, but that's a pretty good information.
No, it would. That sounds very interesting. Definitely will be looking forward to that.
Yeah, for sure. So this is, you've been a tremendous guest, bringing lots of information. And I wanted to kind of give you the last few minutes with any closing thoughts. But I should ask you first, was there anything that that you wanted to cover that we hadn't touched on?
No, honestly, like I said, once anybody that's been down this rabbit hole for, I think, maybe as long as I have, or probably even less, doesn't matter. It's just, there's so much to talk about that we could go on for hours and hours. And, I'm like I said, I'm truly honored. Thank you so much, George, for, answering my email, having me on here. To anybody else out there, this is something great to be a part of, and never stop doing your research. have that initiative, make that free will choice to think and be a critical thinker, and seek the truth. Don't just listen to what they want to tell you. But truly, it's an honor, George. Thank you for having me on here.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you. And if Kevin's message resonates and you want to reach out and have a chat with him, I will have Kevin's email. It's kevin.rodriguez5@g.austincc.edu. But don't worry about trying to write that down. It will be in the show description, so you can copy and paste it and send an email and reach out to Kevin, and you can pick his brain about some of the subjects that we talked about tonight, or maybe you might catch him in the chat room or in the forum on the flatearthfiles.com. It's been a really great episode. I hope we can do this again in the future. By the way, I should mention, Kevin, I've mentioned this to a few other folks we've had on the program. I'm looking to do a roundtable in the very near future to have a few folks on, and we can just kind of all go about and have some really good discussions. So I'll be reaching out to a few of the folks that we've had on in the past here in the very near future. It's something I was hoping to get done by now, but life happens. This is a pretty busy time of year for us. So thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. Thank you to all the listeners, to all the emailers. Keep dropping those breadcrumbs, folks. If you wake someone up, they'll wake someone up, and it's, we'll continue this great awakening, which we are really seeing now. For Kevin, I'm George. I hope everybody has a great week. God bless you all. And until next time, my friends, we will see you.
T-Mobile has invested billions to light up America's largest 5G network, from big cities to small towns, including right here in yours. And great coverage is just the beginning. Right now, families and small businesses can save up to 20% versus AT&T and Verizon when they switch. Visit your local T-Mobile store today.
Plan savings with 2 to 3 lines of T-Mobile Essentials versus comparable available plans. Plan features and taxes and fees may vary.
T-Mobile has invested billions to light up America's largest 5G network, from big cities to small towns, including right here in yours. And great coverage is just the beginning. Right now, families and small businesses can save up to 20% versus AT&T and Verizon when they switch. Visit your local T-Mobile store today.
Plan savings with 2 to 3 lines of T-Mobile Essentials versus comparable available plans. Plan features and taxes and fees may vary.